The sky above Earth went from peaceful to chaotic in an instant as enormous alien ships appeared like dark shadows, blotting out the sun from horizon to horizon. These ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Their sleek metal exteriors shimmered with a strange, almost otherworldly glow as the first of these massive vessels settled into the atmosphere. With a deafening war panic rippled across the globe, communications went haywire, satellites flickered out of existence, entire cities went dark in an instant. The first sign of danger wasn't a bombardment or an attack, but the strange and heavy silence that fell before the storm. The people of Earth were not prepared, not for this level of destruction or the sheer scale of the alien threat. In less than an hour, military bases all around the world were obliterated by strange energy beams that pierced through the toughest walls. Like they were paper, the cities felt the first of the devastation as a few of the alien ships released smaller pods which spread destruction across urban centers that had once been symbols of human achievement. The governments of Earth tried to respond, sending fighter jets and rockets into the air, hoping to make a stand. But nothing seemed to work. The alien vessels were immune to their weapons. The human fighters were shot down without a chance to react, and every attempt at resistance only seemed to provoke the invaders more. From the wreckage of shattered cities, the world leaders scrambled to formulate a plan. What had once been petty squabbles over borders, resources, and ideologies were forgotten in the face of the terror that loomed over the planet. The alien ships were unlike anything Earth's forces had ever faced, and even worse, the invaders didn't seem to be interested in conquering Earth for its resources or territory, but for a far darker reason. As the aliens launched their attack on the largest human population centers, their communications were intercepted by a few of the world's brightest minds. Evelyn Carter was one such mind, a young scientist from a university in the United States. She had always been intrigued by space and the possibility of life beyond Earth, but she never imagined that she would be watching the galactic war unfold from her lab. In those early hours after the first wave of attacks, Dr. Carter and a group of cryptographers managed to hack into the alien signal and decipher some of the communication fragments they had intercepted. The revelation was both terrifying and illuminating. The aliens weren't here for resources. They weren't here to enslave humanity. They were here to eradicate it completely. They had come to Earth, not because it was a prize to be won, but because they believed humanity represented a threat to the entire galaxy. The aliens viewed human ambition as a dangerous thing, something that could one day rise to challenge the established order of the cosmos. The realization hit Earth like a second wave of attacks. Humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the very right to exist in a universe that viewed them as dangerous, primitive creatures whose potential had to be destroyed before it could grow into something unstoppable. Fear swept through the people of Earth, and a cold dread filled the hearts of leaders who now knew that the enemy wasn't interested in negotiating or coexisting. They would never stop until humanity was gone. In every corner of the world, people stared up at the sky, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. But there was something else too, something that began to stir deep inside the hearts of those who still believed in survival. A new thought began to form in the minds of the world's survivors. It was a small seed, a quiet idea that could change everything. But for now, no one dared speak it aloud, because no one knew if it was even possible. As the full scale of the invasion set in, the world seemed to crumble under the weight of it. The major cities were burning and military defenses lay in ruins. No one had the capacity to stop the alien onslaught, and the fear that spread like wildfire was almost palpable. For days, the world was held in a paralyzing grip of panic and helplessness. Entire nations declared martial law in desperate attempts to organize some form of resistance. But the aliens were always one step ahead. They moved with a precision and efficiency that humans couldn't even begin to comprehend. Their weapons were beyond anything the human mind had conceived in its most optimistic projections. And as the days turned to weeks, the realization became clear: Earth wasn't just under attack, Earth was on the verge of extinction. Then something unexpected happened. A voice broke through the silence that had descended on the planet. Evelyn Carter, who had been working tirelessly in the background, suddenly found herself thrust into the spotlight. Her earlier work in quantum physics had made her a well-respected scientist, but now she was more than just a researcher. She had become a symbol of hope. It had been her team that cracked the alien communication code and discovered their true intentions. Their mission wasn't to colonize Earth or enslave its people. They had come because they feared what humanity might one day become, and decided that humanity had to be wiped out before it could pose a threat to their own existence. But as Dr. Carter sat in front of the cameras broadcasting to the world, she wasn't talking about the alien threat or the immediate crisis facing Earth. She was talking about something else, the very thing that had made humans resilient throughout history. She was talking about the one thing that the aliens couldn't possibly predict: the human spirit. In her message, she urged the people of Earth not to give in to despair or fear. She spoke of humanity's ability to adapt, innovate, and surprise. She spoke of their ability to come together in the face of overwhelming odds and to rise against the darkness. Her words were met with skepticism. At first, many thought her message was naive or worse, a form of denial. But something about the way she spoke, the passion in her voice, resonated with people across the world. The idea that humanity wasn't helpless, that they still had the ability to fight back, began to take root in every corner of the globe. It wasn't an army that would save them. It wasn't superior technology. It was something far more unpredictable and dangerous to the invaders: the collective will of humanity. Across the world, small groups of people began to act on Dr. Carter's words. In hidden laboratories, civilians, engineers, and hackers who had once led quiet lives began to turn their attention to a singular goal: how could they fight back against an enemy whose technology was so far beyond their own? Some began to look at the remnants of the alien ships that had crashed or been destroyed during the first wave of attacks. Others began to build crude weapons from whatever they could find. The military tried to organize, but their efforts were still no match for the alien ships. However, something strange started to happen. As humans adapted to their circumstances, they began to take advantage of their surroundings. In remote villages and cities, they used old technology in new ways. They turned simple tools into lethal devices. They built decoys and created false communications to confuse the aliens. And with every small victory, the humans started to understand something the aliens hadn't anticipated. The aliens saw humanity as a single species, a threat they could stamp out with brute force. But humans weren't one thing. They weren't a single entity. They were millions of individuals, each with their own ideas, methods, and strengths. And that unpredictability was their greatest asset. The aliens hadn't counted on humanity's capacity for innovation, or the way that people from all walks of life could come together with a singular purpose. It was still early in the fight, but as humans took their first steps toward resistance, the invaders started to see something they hadn't expected. They began to realize that humanity would not go down without a fight, and that fight would not be like anything they had encountered before. The first signs of change came slowly, like small sparks flickering in the darkness. As the human resistance began to grow, so did the realization that their greatest strength lay not in the weapons they wielded, but in the sheer unpredictability of their actions. Dr. Carter's words had begun to take root, but it was the ground-level ingenuity of everyday people that started to shift the tides of war. Ordinary civilians, engineers, hackers, and soldiers, none of whom had ever considered themselves heroes, now found themselves using everything from old farm equipment to makeshift weapons created from alien debris. The world was waking up to the fact that they had more resources at their disposal than the invaders had ever imagined. In a remote farming community in the Midwest, a group of engineers and mechanics took the wreckage from a downed alien fighter ship and began to experiment. Using scraps of alien technology and their own understanding of mechanical engineering, they managed to reassemble a crude but functional laser weapon that could pierce the hulls of alien drones. It wasn't much, but it was something. They used it to take down a patrol of invaders and captured their technology for the first time. News of this success spread quickly, and it ignited a fire of hope in other communities around the world. In major cities, teams of hackers infiltrated alien communications networks, using software adapted from old military encryption systems. These hackers discovered the flaws in the alien command structure and began sending false signals, tricking the invaders into thinking they were facing a much larger and better coordinated resistance than they actually were. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens started losing track of their targets. They began to make mistakes, miscalculating human movements and thinking they were dealing with far more organized resistance cells than the reality of scattered, uncoordinated groups. Humans, working in the shadows and with nothing but their wits, were turning the tide in their favor. In underground bunkers and abandoned buildings across the world, groups of soldiers, both regular and irregular, came together to form small but highly effective guerrilla units. These units didn't just rely on advanced technology, but used their knowledge of terrain and their ability to strike unpredictably. They laid traps, used hit-and-run tactics, and utilized decoys to confuse and overwhelm alien patrols. The humans were no longer simply reacting to the invaders' attacks. They were taking the initiative, setting the stage for a battle of attrition. The alien leadership, which had once viewed humanity as nothing more than an insignificant species, started to take notice of these rising pockets of resistance. But their response was to send more troops, more ships, and more advanced technology, believing that the problem could simply be crushed with greater firepower. What they didn't realize, however, was that the harder they pushed, the more resourceful and desperate humanity became. Every time the aliens increased the pressure, human resistance only grew stronger, more creative, and more united. A pivotal moment came when a group of resistance fighters in Europe captured an alien scout ship that had crash-landed. These fighters, led by an ex-pilot named Marcus, dismantled the ship, reverse-engineering its power systems and weaponry. Within weeks, they were able to build their own fleet of modified alien ships. They didn't have the sophistication or advanced technology of the invaders, but their ingenuity and adaptability allowed them to make use of what they had in ways that the aliens never expected. The first human-made fleet of modified alien vessels was ready to engage, and the resistance had finally found its first real foothold in the fight. Across the world, humans were coming together, adapting, and evolving faster than the invaders had anticipated. The tide was shifting, and the aliens, who had once believed they would easily destroy humanity, were starting to understand that they had underestimated the human will to survive. The fight had only just begun, but humans were no longer waiting for defeat. They were actively shaping their own future. The aliens had underestimated humanity's resilience, and as the days passed, they began to feel the pressure mounting. Small victories turned into larger ones, and the humans, once seemingly on the brink of extinction, were now becoming a force to be reckoned with. Yet the aliens were not blind to this shift. They adapted quickly, escalating their tactics. In response to the growing resistance, the invaders sent in their elite special forces, a group known only as the Vanguard. These soldiers, trained in every form of warfare across the galaxy, were deployed with a single purpose: to eliminate the human leaders and scientists who were orchestrating this unprecedented uprising, starting with Dr. Evelyn Carter. The first wave of Vanguard soldiers hit without warning. They descended on Dr. Carter's laboratory, a hidden facility buried deep within the mountainous region of Canada, where she and her team had been working on breaking alien codes and developing countermeasures. Carter had received warnings, intelligence gathered from the hackers who had infiltrated the alien networks, alerting her to the imminent danger. But despite the advanced warning, there was no time to evacuate everyone. The Vanguard arrived like a storm. The attack was swift. A shuttle from one of the alien warships landed just outside the facility, its ramp opening to reveal a squad of heavily armored soldiers. The team of researchers and engineers within the lab immediately scrambled for cover, grabbing whatever weapons they had at their disposal. The Vanguard soldiers were fast and ruthless, storming through the facility with terrifying efficiency. They didn't need to ask questions. They were there to kill, and kill they did. Yet Carter and her team had been preparing for this moment. They had anticipated an attack and set up decoys and defensive traps throughout the complex. As the Vanguard advanced, a series of explosive charges went off, disrupting their momentum. The researchers, now armed with hastily constructed energy weapons and improvised gear, engaged in guerrilla-style combat. For the first time, the humans fought back with coordinated tactics that caught the alien soldiers off guard. A series of cleverly timed distractions led the vanguard into traps, where they were ambushed by human fighters using the very technology they had once been so quick to dismiss. The vanguard were trained for battlefield warfare, not for the kind of unpredictable human ingenuity they were now encountering. Meanwhile, Dr. Carter, protected by a handful of her most trusted allies, took refuge in the depths of the facility's central core, where she worked feverishly on her research. Her mission was clear. She had to survive, not just for herself but for humanity. If she could stay alive long enough to complete her most important work, the development of a virus that could disrupt the alien command network, then humanity's chances of survival would increase exponentially. The virus, if perfected, could infiltrate the alien fleets, rendering them powerless and possibly turning the tide in the war. As the battle raged above, Carter's team successfully thwarted the vanguard's attempts to reach the core. The humans fought with everything they had, using their knowledge of the facility to outsmart and outmaneuver the aliens. They had no advanced training, no specialized weaponry, and no elite forces, but they had something far more valuable: the drive to survive, the will to fight for a future they couldn't let slip away. The vanguard, though relentless, were eventually forced to retreat. Their mission failed. The humans had turned the tide of the battle, but it came at a cost. Several of Dr. Carter's closest allies were lost in the skirmish, their sacrifice not in vain, but a reminder of how high the stakes had become. With the facility secure, Carter returned to her work, knowing that her next steps were crucial. The virus was close to completion, but she couldn't afford to make a single mistake. The fate of humanity depended on it. Outside the lab, the war was escalating, but inside, Dr. Carter's determination grew. She had a clear vision now. Humanity wouldn't just survive this invasion. They would make the aliens understand that they had made a grave mistake in thinking that Earth was a place they could conquer. The fight had only just begun, and humanity was ready to prove that their greatest weapon wasn't technology or firepower. It was their ability to adapt and outthink their enemies. As the weeks passed, the battle between humanity and the alien invaders began to shift. The alien fleet, though formidable and vast, was now facing an adversary that refused to go down without a fight. Every small victory, every successful ambush, and every piece of alien technology repurposed was a testament to the resilience of humankind. But Dr. Evelyn Carter knew that these victories, though important, would not be enough to turn the tide in the long run. The aliens had already proven their superior strength and technology. It wasn't until she and her team completed their final piece of research that humanity would have a real chance to win. The virus she had been working on, a sophisticated program designed to infiltrate and disable the alien command network, was nearly complete. But Dr. Carter knew that simply creating it wasn't enough. She needed to get it to the heart of the alien fleet, the mothership, where the central coordination of their forces occurred. It was the key to crippling the alien assault on Earth. If she could get the virus uploaded into the mothership's systems, it would cause the entire fleet to shut down, rendering the invaders' advanced technology useless and disrupting their ability to communicate and coordinate. The only problem was getting there. The mothership was heavily guarded, surrounded by a battalion of alien warships and protected by an array of deadly defenses. The odds were against them. But Dr. Carter had already seen what humans could accomplish when they were faced with impossible odds. It was then that a breakthrough came. A group of resistance fighters in Europe had captured an alien scout ship during a raid. The ship, though damaged, still contained valuable alien technology that could be reverse engineered. Marcus, a former pilot and one of the leaders of the European resistance, spearheaded the effort to dissect the ship and learn its inner workings. After weeks of painstaking analysis, the group managed to reconfigure the ship's power core and weapons systems. They did not have the firepower to take on the entire alien fleet, but with this ship, They could penetrate the outer defenses of the mothership and get close enough to upload the virus. It was a long shot, but it was the best chance humanity had. Dr. Carter immediately sent a team to meet with Marcus and his group, hoping to modify the alien scout ship into a Trojan horse capable of carrying her virus deep into enemy territory. The journey to the mothership would be fraught with danger, and even if they made it there, they would need to outmaneuver the alien ships guarding the mothership's perimeter. But Carter's confidence was unwavering. She knew that humans had one advantage the aliens would never understand: unpredictability. As the team worked tirelessly to prepare the ship, the rest of the resistance made final preparations for the assault. Guerrilla fighters, hackers, engineers, and soldiers worked in tandem, all focused on one goal: buying enough time for the virus to reach the mothership. They began launching coordinated strikes against alien outposts and communication hubs, drawing the invaders' attention away from the approaching mission. Every success, no matter how small, was another blow to the alien invaders' confidence. Finally, the modified scout ship was ready. Dr. Carter and Marcus, along with a small crew of elite resistance fighters, boarded the ship and set off toward the alien mothership. As they approached, the magnitude of the mission weighed heavily on them. The alien fleet loomed large in the distance, its sheer size almost incomprehensible. Yet, in the face of overwhelming odds, Dr. Carter held on to the belief that humanity's ingenuity and ability to adapt could carry them through. This was the moment they had all been fighting for, the moment when humanity would prove that no matter the strength of their enemies, no force in the universe could ever suppress their will to survive. As the ship drew closer to the mothership, the crew braced themselves for the fight ahead. They knew that the road to victory wouldn't be easy, and they couldn't afford to fail. With every second that passed, the tension grew, but so did their determination. It wasn't just a mission, it was a statement. Humanity would not be defeated. They were ready for whatever came next. The modified alien scout ship, now a symbol of humanity's audacity and resilience, hurtled toward the mothership, cutting through the void of space with startling speed. Dr. Carter stood at the helm, her mind racing with calculations and contingencies. Every breath felt heavy, as if the weight of the entire human race rested on her shoulders. Beside her, Marcus, the former pilot turned leader, piloted the ship with calm determination, his hand steady on the controls despite the enormity of the mission ahead. The path to the mothership was anything but straightforward. The alien warships that had surrounded it were relentless in their patrols, their sensors scanning the void for any sign of intruders. But thanks to the modifications made to the scout ship, they were able to temporarily mask their presence, blending into the electromagnetic signature of nearby debris. Still, the closer they got, the harder it became to stay undetected. Dr. Carter knew that once they were spotted, it would be a matter of seconds before the entire fleet descended upon them. Through the ship's small viewport, Dr. Carter could see the massive shape of the mothership growing larger. It was an imposing structure, an amalgamation of advanced technology and alien architecture, with sleek, menacing lines cutting through the stars. The mothership was a fortress, a symbol of the invaders' might. The thought of breaching its defenses was daunting, but Dr. Carter remained focused on the task at hand. There was no turning back now. As they neared the outer perimeter of the mothership's defenses, Marcus eased the ship into a tight, calculated trajectory. The scout ship's systems hummed quietly, relying on human ingenuity and a little luck to avoid detection. For a moment, it seemed as though they might make it, until a sharp, shrill alarm blared, cutting through the silence of the ship's interior. The ship's sensors detected a sudden pulse of energy from one of the enemy warships. It was on a direct course toward them. Braced for impact, Marcus growled, slamming his fist onto the control panel to activate the ship's evasive maneuver systems. The ship jolted, throwing everyone inside into a brief moment of weightlessness before it reoriented itself, swerving to avoid a blast of energy from the approaching warship. "Damn it," Carter muttered under her breath. "We've been spotted." The alarms blared louder as the alien warship locked onto their position. Within moments, they were engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse with a far superior force. The enemy vessel opened fire, releasing beams of destructive energy that streaked past them, barely missing the ship as Marcus twisted the controls, narrowly avoiding the blasts. "Get ready to launch the virus," Carter shouted, her voice steady despite the growing chaos. "We can't outrun them. We have to reach the core." They were close, so close, but time was running out. Carter's fingers flew across the console, inputting the final sequence of commands that would deploy the virus into the mothership's systems. The virus was designed to infiltrate the alien network, first disrupting their communication, then severing the control links between their ships, and finally rendering their weapons and shields inoperable. If they could just get close enough to upload it. The warship pursuing them fired again, this time striking the outer hull of the scout ship with a glancing blow. The ship shuddered, sending vibrations through the entire structure. For a moment, Carter thought they might not make it. The ship groaned under the impact, and a series of lights flickered out. The ship was damaged, but still intact. They had no choice but to press forward. 5 seconds to upload, Carter called out, fingers trembling as she executed the final command. The moment the virus began to upload, the ship was rocked by a series of blasts from the alien warship. The pressure of the incoming fire rattled the crew. But Carter's eyes were locked on the progress bar on the screen. The virus was in the system. If it completed its task, the alien fleet would be crippled. And then, as if in response to their defiance, the mothership's weapons systems flared to life. The massive vessel began firing at the scout ship, its energy beams lancing through space toward them with terrifying precision. But just as the first shot was about to strike, something unexpected happened. A pulse of energy surged from the mothership, and for the briefest moment, the lights inside the scout ship flickered and dimmed. Then, as quickly as it had started, the pulse faded. Carter's heart raced as the last of the virus uploaded, completing its task. She looked up at the display, holding her breath. The message on the screen was clear. Connection complete. Protocol activated. The mothership's massive form seemed to shudder in space, as if something inside had broken. The energy beams stopped. The ship's weapons powered down. The once imposing alien fleet was suddenly silent. For the first time in weeks, there was a moment of pure, stunned silence. The war had just taken a turn, and humanity had delivered the first decisive blow. But the battle was far from over. The fight for Earth had only just begun, and though the odds were still stacked against them, humanity now had a real chance to win. The universe seemed to pause in the wake of the virus's success. The hum of the alien mothership's systems had gone silent, the once thrumming engines now nothing more than a faint echo in the vastness of space. The deadly energy weapons that had been so deadly in the past now sat dormant, powerless. The mothership, once an impregnable fortress, now stood vulnerable, its coordination disrupted, and its fleet drifting aimlessly. It was a moment of triumph, but Dr. Carter knew it was fleeting. The aliens would not sit idly by for long. The clock was ticking, and they had only one shot to exploit this weakness. "Now," Carter whispered under her breath. "Now is our chance." Marcus slammed his fist onto the controls, maneuvering the ship closer to the mothership. The smaller scout ship, now unchallenged, glided toward the heart of the enemy's fortress, where the central command core lay. Even though their immediate threat was neutralized, there was still the danger of the alien forces regrouping. This was their only opportunity to strike a decisive blow before the aliens had time to recalibrate. "We're in," Marcus said, his voice taut with tension as the ship finally breached the outer defenses of the mothership. Inside the control room of the mothership, alien commanders scrambled to regain control of their systems. They had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, but they would not make the same mistake twice. Orders were being issued in a panic, but the network was fractured, the communications too disjointed to rally a proper defense. Without their central command, the aliens were crippled. It was as if they had been cut off from their own lifeblood. "We've made it past their perimeter," Dr. Carter said, her voice calm but steely. "We're close to the core. Prepare for a direct upload." As they approached the central control hub, Marcus noticed the growing silence in the comms. He glanced over at Carter, a deep uncertainty in his eyes. "How long do you think we have?" Dr. Carter didn't look up from the console, her fingers flying across the screen, confirming the virus's successful infiltration. "I don't know. They'll try to activate secondary systems soon, but we've hit them harder than they expect. We just have to finish this before they get control back." The ship's hull rattled as alien ships, now drifting without central command, began to fire wildly in all directions. The scout ship dodged incoming blasts, weaving through the chaos of the disabled fleet. Even without their full power, the alien ships were still deadly, and their desperation made them all the more dangerous. "We've got incoming," Marcus shouted. A pair of alien warships, still operating on backup power, had locked onto their position, their weapons charging with ominous energy. They were closing in fast. Carter's face was tense with concentration. "I need 3 more minutes to finish the virus upload. Hold them off as long as you can." Marcus didn't flinch. He'd flown in combat before, but this was something entirely different. The fight was not just for survival anymore. It was for the future of humanity itself. With grim determination, he steered the scout ship through the chaotic battlefield, narrowly dodging blasts and firing off counterattacks of their own. The small ship might not have had the firepower to take on the larger warships, but it was fast, agile, and in this moment, their only hope. The alien ships, now completely out of sync with each other, were disorganized, firing blindly and trying to regain control. Marcus used that to his advantage, ducking and weaving through their paths like a shadow, never staying in one place long enough for them to line up a clean shot. Meanwhile, inside the scout ship, Carter's heart raced. Each second felt like an eternity. She knew that every choice she made, every keystroke, was deciding the fate of billions. She glanced up at the view screen, just in time to see one of the alien ships target them with a full barrage of energy blasts. The weapons were charging, and the ship was almost in range. 1 minute left, Carter said, as if talking to herself more than anyone else. Just 1 more minute. Outside, the alien ships began to focus all their remaining firepower on the scout ship. It was clear now. They understood what was at stake. They had to stop this mission, or they would lose everything. But Marcus wouldn't let them. He gritted his teeth and pushed the ship to its limits, weaving through beams of alien energy with a determination that felt almost supernatural. 5 seconds, Carter said, her voice sharp. She wasn't looking at Marcus. Her eyes were fixed on the upload progress bar, counting down the final moments. "Do it," Marcus growled, his hands white-knuckled on the controls as he made a final evasive maneuver. The countdown reached 0. The virus completed its task. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a wave crashing against a shore, a massive pulse of energy spread through the mothership. The remaining alien warships seemed to freeze mid-motion, their systems failing one by one. The mothership itself groaned and began to slowly drift, powerless, its once imposing weapons and shields now inert. It was over. For the first time in the war, humanity had delivered the final blow. The aliens' last hope of regaining control had evaporated. But even as the enemy ships drifted helplessly in space, Dr. Carter knew this victory was just the beginning. There was still more to be done. The mothership was only the heart of the invasion, and now they had to ensure that Earth would remain free. The war was not over, not yet, but humanity had just shown that, with enough courage and unity, they could overcome the impossible. The mothership, once a symbol of invincibility, now drifted helplessly in the vastness of space, its core systems completely disabled by the virus. Its massive hull, once an indomitable force of destruction, now seemed almost fragile, vulnerable to the void around it. The alien fleet, leaderless and without direction, was slowly falling apart. Without the mothership to coordinate their efforts, the remaining warships were like a flock of birds without a leader, aimless, disorganized, and increasingly ineffective. Dr. Carter sat in the dimly lit control room of the scout ship, her hand still trembling slightly from the intensity of the moment. The upload was complete, and the virus had done its job. The mothership was neutralized, and the alien forces were in disarray. Yet the war was not over. The virus had crippled the central command structure, but the remaining alien forces were still powerful. The fight for Earth was far from finished. Marcus, who had spent the entire mission steering the ship through a hailstorm of enemy fire, looked at her, his face a mask of exhaustion mixed with determination. "We've done it, but we're not out of this yet." Carter nodded, her mind racing. She knew that their success had created an opportunity, but it had also put them on a precipice. They had no illusions. The aliens wouldn't give up easily, and now that the mothership was disabled, they would likely send everything they had left to try to reclaim control. "Let's regroup," Carter said, her voice firm despite the gravity of the situation. "We need to contact the other resistance cells. Get everyone coordinated. This is our chance to strike while they're still reeling." The scout ship, now an unlikely flagship for the resistance, began to turn back toward Earth. It had taken everything to get this far, but the battle wasn't won until the last alien ship was driven from Earth's skies. As they approached the planet, Carter's thoughts turned to the millions of people still fighting across the globe. The resistance had become a collective force, driven by the realization that humanity's survival depended not just on technology or military might, but on the collective will to resist, to fight, and to survive. Back on Earth, the news of the mothership's fall spread like wildfire. People who had once cowered in fear now found themselves filled with renewed hope. The aliens were still there, but for the first time in months, they were on the back foot. Humanity's counteroffensive began immediately, with resistance cells across the world launching coordinated strikes on alien installations, taking advantage of the confusion and disarray caused by the mothership's failure. Dr. Carter, now in constant contact with Marcus and other key leaders in the resistance, helped coordinate the final phase of the human counterattack. Using the alien ships they had captured, modified, and reverse-engineered, the resistance began to build a fleet of their own, ready to face the remaining alien forces head-on. Their tactics were unconventional, unpredictable, and uniquely human. The aliens, who had relied on sheer force and precision, were struggling to adapt to the guerrilla tactics and out-of-the-box thinking that humanity had brought to the table. Days passed, and the momentum shifted further in humanity's favor. The alien warships, now isolated from their mothership's command structure, began to fall one by one. Human ingenuity had made the impossible possible, and Earth was reclaiming its sky, piece by piece. But it wasn't just the alien fleet that was collapsing. The heart of the alien invasion was being torn apart from within. Dr. Carter's virus, which had started with the mothership, began to spread throughout the alien command network, disabling ships and installations on a scale the invaders hadn't anticipated. The once unified alien force was now fractured, its communication systems failing one by one. And then, in a final decisive strike, humanity's newly formed fleet, led by Marcus's modified scout ship and supported by global resistance cells, launched a coordinated assault on the remaining alien strongholds. With the aliens unable to communicate or coordinate effectively, the human fleet struck with devastating precision. The final blow was swift. The alien invaders, who had once seen Earth as an easy conquest, were now defeated. Their fleet lay in ruins, scattered across space and Earth's skies. As Dr. Carter stood on the deck of the command ship, watching the final remnants of the alien armada burn in the atmosphere, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. Humanity had endured the unthinkable. The alien threat had been vanquished, and Earth was free. But the battle had not just been for survival. It had been for the very soul of humanity. Their capacity to endure, to adapt, and to rise from the darkest of circumstances. It had been a victory forged in the face of overwhelming odds, built on the strength of the human spirit. Earth had been invaded, but it had not been defeated. Dr. Carter turned to Marcus, who stood beside her, his eyes scanning the now peaceful sky. "We've won, but we're not done yet. We rebuild, and we ensure that no one ever forgets what we're capable of." Marcus nodded, his face set with determination. We rebuild together. And so, the world began to heal, stronger than ever before, with humanity forever changed by the war they had fought and won.